can you solve equations involving fractions and mixed numbers? Let's look at an example. A 6-foot piece of fruit snack is cut into 2 pieces. What is the length of the shorter piece of fruit snack? What information are you given? What do you need to find? A fruit snack is 6 feet long. It is cut into 2 pieces, and one piece is 3 3/4 feet. You need to find the length of the other piece.
You can use a bar diagram to show how the quantities are related and to write an equation.
Look at the bar diagram. How does the bar diagram represent the problem? Which part of the bar diagram represents the length in feet of the shorter piece?
Select your answer.
The bar diagram shows how the length of the longer piece, 3 3/4 feet, plus the length in feet of the shorter piece, x, equals the total length of the fruit snack, 6 feet. The equation 3 3/4 plus x equals 6 represents the problem. Solve 3 3/4 plus x equals 6. Use inverse relationships and properties of equality. What will you do to the equation to get x alone? Write the equation. Subtract 3 3/4 from both sides of the equation. Rewrite 6 as 5 4/4 so you can subtract 3/4 from 4/4. Subtract. The shorter piece of fruit snack is 2 1/4 feet long.
Suppose you cut the shorter piece of fruit snack from the example shown into 2 pieces. The longer of the 2 pieces is 1 3/8 feet long. Complete the bar diagram to represent the equation. Then find the length of the shorter piece.
This will be based on our original problem in the example. So the fruit snack was a total of 6 feet in length. And it says now the longer of the 2 pieces is 1 3/8. So that would go here, 1 3/8. And they wrote the equation for us here. And we need to now solve for x. So we have to get x by itself on one side of the equation. So we're going to take the 1 3/8 because that's on the same side as the x, and that is going to be positive, so we're going to subtract 1 3/8 from both sides of the equation. After subtracting, those cancel out. You have x by itself, and then 2 1/4 minus 1 3/8. Now you do know with fractions the denominators have to be the same when you're adding and subtracting, so the 2 1/4 has to change. So we're going to take the 2 1/4, and we know a common factor is 8, so I'm going to multiply by 2 so that this becomes now 2 2/8. Now I can subtract the 2/8 and the 3/8. I'm going to make the 2 2/8 now to be a take the mixed numbers to make it an improper fraction. So 8 times 2 is 16, plus 2 is 18 over 8. And then we have to take this mixed number, do the same thing. So 1 times 8 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11 over 8. And then we can subtract. So 18 minus 11 will give us 7, and then the denominator stays the same. So our final answer would be 7/8.
Use inverse relationships to solve each equation. Part A. Y minus 4/9 equals 5 1/3.
First step is to rewrite the equation. Next is to get the variable y by itself. And so the opposite of minus 4/9 would be plus 4/9, and you have to do that to both sides of the equation. And the 4/9 and 4/9 would cancel out here, so y is by itself. And then 5 1/3 plus 4/9 will equal 5 7/9. And remember, this 5 1/3 has to be made have the same denominator, and it has to be into an improper fraction before adding, so you have added correctly.
Part B. 3/8 times n equals 3/4.
Once again, you rewrite the equation. This time we're multiplying. So the variable, to get it by itself, you have to now divide instead of multiplying. So you divide the 3/8 on both sides of the equation. And so by finding the reciprocal of the 3/8, 8/3, you are dividing by that number, because remember, with dividing fractions is keep, change, reciprocal. So 3/4, if you're dividing 3/8 and 3/4, you have to find the reciprocal of one of the fractions. And if you automatically take that fraction that you're dividing on both sides and find the reciprocal, you don't have to do the keep, change, reciprocal step, because you already did it at the beginning. And then you just multiply straight across, and you get 24/12, and you must simplify that, and you get 2.
Part C. P divided by 5 equals 8.
Once again, you start by writing the equation, and again, you have a fraction, so the p is actually part of our fraction. That's our variable, and we still need to get it by itself. So to do that, we take the 5 and we find the reciprocal of 1/5 times p, because that would essentially be 1p. And so the reciprocal of that would be 5/1, and then you multiply the 5/1 and the 8, because it's keep, change, reciprocal. Remember, we talked about that. And so you get 40 as the value of p.
Solve 5/9 times y equals 25 for y.
Now we're going to try it ourselves. And so we want to get the y by itself. So first step is to rewrite the equation. And so now I'm multiplying by 5/9, so I need to divide by 5/9. So I'm going to do the reciprocal of 5/9 on both sides of the equation. These cancel out. I have a y by itself, and now I have to multiply, and that would be over 1. So now I have to multiply. As you know, I like to simplify first, so I look across to see if I can find a common factor. So 5 and 25 actually have a common factor of 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 25 divided by 5 is 5. And 9 and 1 do not have a common factor other than 1. So 1 and 9, so 5 times 9 is 45, and then 1 times 1 is 1. So simplified, that would be y is the value of 45.
Molly bought these oranges for $7.15. She paid the same amount for each orange. Write and solve an equation to find M, the cost of each orange.
They tell us to draw a bar diagram to represent the situation. So here's our bar diagram. The 7 and 1500ths is the $17.15 that she paid for all of the oranges. The M tells us the cost of each orange. So each one of these oranges, we don't know the cost yet. So that's what's on the bar diagram. And it says click on each part for more information. So this, the cost of each orange. So we click on any one of those. That's what it says. Here is the total cost. Now it said to write an equation to solve it. So the letter M is written in each cell of that bar diagram, and the row is labeled as the cost of each orange. So if you remember let me go back. If you count the diagram, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 M's. So in our equation, we would do 13 times M, which is the cost of the oranges, and that will equal the $7.15. To get the M by itself, our variable, we are going to, instead of multiply, we do the inverse, which is division. So we divide by 13 on both sides of the equation. Once we divide 7 and 1500ths and 13, you would get 0 and 5500ths, which is 55 cents she paid for each orange.
Molly also buys a bag of 8 apples for $3.60. Write and solve an equation to find how much Molly paid for each apple.
Alright, so I can follow what the example did, which is draw a bar diagram. It doesn't say to do that, but I wanted to show you how. It tells us she bought 8 apples, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so each of those apples, and I'm going to use the variable A to represent the apple. So I'm going to put an A in each one of these pieces, and then from here to here is the total amount that she paid, which was $3.60. Okay, so now for the equation. The equation, we know that for each apple, they had to be the same amount. So we would have to take the 8 apples and multiply it by the cost of each apple, and that should equal $3.60. Make that look a little better. 60 cents. And so the inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by 8. And writing it as a fraction like I'm doing now is the same as division. So A is by itself now. $3.60 divided by 8 is equal to 45 cents. So she paid 45 cents for each apple.
Use inverse relationships to solve each equation. Part A. M plus 5 and 43/100ths equals 9 and 28/100ths.
First step, write the equation over. We're adding 5 and 43/100ths. So to get M, the variable M by itself, we're going to subtract 5 and 43/100ths from each side. and then m is by itself now, and then when you subtract, you get 3 85/100ths.
Part B. X divided by 2 and 5/10 equals 40.
Write the equation. X divided by 2 and 5/10 times 2. X divided by 2 and 5/10 equals 40. You multiply instead of dividing on each side because that's the inverse of division. And you get x by itself on this side, and then 40 times 2 and 5/10 is equal to 100.
Part C. Y minus 6 and 2/10 equals 2 and 9/10.
You write the equation again. Then you know the opposite or inverse of 6 and 2/10 minus 6 and 2/10 is adding 6 and 2/10. Y is now by itself, and then once you add, you get 9 and 1/10.
Carmen spent $12.50 for a new notebook and a compass. The notebook cost $6.35. Write and solve an equation to find C, the cost of the compass.
Okay, so she spent $12.50. That's the total amount for the notebook and compass. The notebook was $6.35, and we don't know the cost of the compass, and we're going to make that C. It also tells us that in the problem. So that's the cost of the compass. So we know the notebook plus the amount of the compass is going to equal $12.50. So now we have to solve for C. So we're going to do the inverse of addition to get C by itself. So the inverse of addition is subtracting. So we are going to subtract $6.35 from each side of the equation. That cancels out. We're left with C. And then when you subtract $12.50 from $6.35, $6.15. So the cost of the compass is $6.15.